My name is Ethan Mercer. I'm 23 years old. 5 years ago, I stood in my family's living room in the North Dallas suburbs and watched my father burn my future in a brick fireplace. He held my Harvard acceptance letter up to the light like he was inspecting a counterfeit bill. Then he flicked his brushed steel lighter and let the flame take it. The parchment curled slowly, edges blackening, ink dissolving into smoke. I didn't move. Behind him, my mother stood silent, holding the remaining 7 envelopes against her chest. Princeton. She didn't look at me. She looked at my brother. Enough of this, my father said, tossing the burning letter onto the logs. You're staying here. Your brother needs a stable house to launch the company. Family supports family. He reached for the Yale envelope next. My older brother, Caleb, leaned against the kitchen counter, arms folded. 25. Visionary. According to my parents, 2 failed startups already behind him. This third one, an AI crypto trading platform he couldn't code, was apparently the one that would change everything. They had refinanced the house for him. They needed me working full-time at the auto shop to help with cash flow. My father fed Yale into the fire, then Princeton, then the rest. He thought he'd destroyed every exit. What he didn't know was that the only letter that mattered was folded flat beneath the insole of my left boot. 3 days earlier, I'd intercepted it at the curb before he could. A full-ride scholarship to MIT. Tuition, housing, stipend. While Harvard turned to ash in the fireplace, the real future stayed hidden under my heel. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice. I memorized the smell of burning paper. Then I went upstairs to pack. I didn't leave that night. Not immediately. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door without slamming it, and sat on the edge of my bed. Through the floorboards, I could hear my father's voice drifting from the living room. Confident, satisfied. He believed he'd handled the situation. I waited. The television shut off. My parents' bedroom door closed. The house went still. I lay back fully dressed, boots on, staring at the ceiling. I didn't feel anger. Anger wastes energy. I was calculating distance, timing, and cash. I stood up. I pulled the old canvas duffel from my closet. 3 pairs of jeans, 4 shirts, underwear, socks, my laptop, charger. Nothing sentimental. No trophies. No photographs. Memories don't finance survival. From the bottom drawer of my dresser, I removed a rolled pair of gym socks. Inside was $400 in cash graduation money from relatives. My mother had instructed me to contribute to Caleb's seed round. I'd said I never received it. I slipped the bills into my jacket pocket. Then I sat on the floor and unlaced my left boot. I lifted the insole and removed the thick cream envelope. Full ride. I flattened the crease with my thumb, slid it back beneath the padding, and tightened the laces. Proof secured. I moved downstairs slowly, stepping on the outer edges of the stairs where they didn't creak. My father's snoring rolled down the hallway like distant thunder. Caleb's basement light was still on, a faint glow under the door, probably watching YouTube tutorials about scaling infrastructure. I didn't pause. In the kitchen, moonlight cut through the blinds, striping the tile floor. I removed my house key from the ring and placed it on the counter beside the coffee machine. Metal against granite. Final. I walked out the back door and let it close softly behind me. The Greyhound station was 2 miles away. I didn't call a rideshare. Digital trails are liabilities. I kept my head down and walked through the sleeping suburb past identical brick houses, silent driveways, manicured lawns hiding private rot. The duffel strap dug into my shoulder. The Texas air was humid and thick. Every step put more distance between me and that fireplace. I didn't look back. By the time I reached the station, it was 3. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The air smelled like diesel fuel and stale coffee. A man slept across 3 plastic chairs. A woman argued quietly into her phone. I stepped up to the counter. Next bus to Boston, I said. The clerk didn't look up. Leaves in 20 minutes. One way is $102. I slid the bills under the glass. No hesitation. 14 hours later, the bus pulled into South Station. The engine cut. The doors hissed open. Cold air hit my face. Boston was louder than Dallas. Faster, colder, in a way that felt surgical. I stepped onto the sidewalk with $298 in my pocket and no one waiting for me. The MIT dorms wouldn't open for another 14 days. I didn't panic. I assessed. 2 weeks. No housing. No safety net. No backup plan. Safety nets teach you to fall soft. I adjusted the duffel strap on my shoulder and started walking into the city. The house in Dallas was finished with me. Now the real work started. The first 14 days in Boston weren't dramatic. They were mechanical. You learn quickly that survival is a routine, not a feeling. Night 1. I sat in a 2-4-hour diner near South Station and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu: black coffee and toast. I stretched it for 4 hours. When the waitress started glancing at the clock, I left. I slept sitting upright in the bus terminal that night, back against the wall. Duffel strap looped around my forearm. Boots still on. You don't sleep deeply when you don't own the room. By day 3, I had mapped the public libraries, the cheapest grocery stores, and which buildings had unlocked restrooms. I showered at a $15 gym trial. I had no intention of continuing. I washed my socks in a sink and dried them under a hand dryer. No one noticed me. That was useful. The dorms opened exactly 14 days after I arrived. I walked through MIT's main entrance carrying the same canvas bag I'd left Texas with. Parents were unloading SUVs packed with mini fridges and $3,000 laptops. Mothers were crying. Fathers were giving speeches about legacy. I swiped my temporary ID, found my assigned room, and locked the door behind me. I had .sextio at left. Within 48 hours, I secured 2 jobs. Midnight to 6 a. I worked in the campus data lab, reorganizing archived research hardware and wiping retired servers. It paid slightly above minimum wage because it required clearance and technical accuracy. From 7 a. to untouchable, I worked at a coffee shop 3 blocks from campus. It sat near a cluster of venture capital firms and fintech offices. Suits lined up every morning for espresso and phone calls about liquidity events. After that, I went to class. Sleep averaged 3 to 4 hours. I didn't complain. Exhaustion is predictable. Chaos isn't. Back in Dallas, Caleb's AI trading platform was still draining money. I monitored from a distance. Public filings, social media posts, careless interviews he gave to small crypto podcasts. He talked about disrupting markets. He couldn't explain volatility curves. Every failed decision he made became a data point in my notebook. By the end of my first semester, I had built a private spreadsheet cataloging his previous startups. Capital raised, monthly burn rate, discretionary spending spikes, timing of collapse. I tracked patterns in behavior before financial implosion car leases, office upgrades, social media overexposure. There was rhythm to incompetence. During winter break, while other students flew home, I stayed on campus and started teaching myself Python beyond coursework requirements. Not for class credit, for leverage. It began as an exercise. Could I build a simple model that predicted when a founder's spending behavior signaled impending failure? I fed in Caleb's numbers first. Then I scraped public data from failed crypto startups between 2016 and 2020. Burn rate acceleration, executive compensation mismatches, marketing spend spikes preceding insolvency, social signaling behaviors tied to desperation fundraising. I wasn't trying to shame him. I was studying inevitability. By sophomore year, the spreadsheet had evolved into a functioning backend script. Rough, unpolished, but alive. I ran historical datasets from 47 collapsed fintech startups through the model. It flagged critical failure windows with 91% accuracy. I refined it obsessively, then 96%. While Caleb was leasing another car and posting about series of momentum, I was building something that could see through men like him months before investors realized they were bleeding. I didn't tell anyone. At Doya, in the campus lab, under fluorescent lighting, I would run simulations until my vision blurred. Coffee shop tips paid for a refurbished server tower I kept hidden beneath my dorm desk. Data is cleaner than emotion. Data doesn't lie to protect someone's ego. One morning, during the 8 rush at the coffee shop, 2 men in tailored coats sat at the counter, arguing quietly. We just lost 18 million. The older one muttered. Risk model didn't flag executive instability. The software tracks market exposure. The younger replied. It doesn't track behavior. I kept wiping the espresso machine. Didn't look up. If someone built a predictive behavioral risk layer, the younger man continued. Something that flags founders before they torch the capital. We'd pay 10 times valuation. I didn't react, but my mind locked in. That night, I tore my model apart and rebuilt it with behavioral weighting layered into liquidity forecasting. I added anomaly detection triggers tied to personal spending deviations and compensation ratios. I didn't sleep for 36 hours. When I finally ran the updated version against archived datasets, It predicted collapse windows with 97% accuracy. Not theoretical. Provable. I sat back in my dorm chair, staring at the screen. The room was silent except for the hum of the server fan. Surviving MIT wasn't enough. Graduating wasn't enough. If I left with a degree and a comfortable job, Caleb's eventual collapse would circle back to me. My parents would call. They would frame it as temporary support. They would expect obligation. Comfortable men get drained. Untouchable men don't. I looked at the code scrolling across my monitor and understood something clearly for the first time. I wasn't building software. I was building distance. And distance, when engineered correctly, becomes power. I didn't send cold emails. I didn't apply through internship portals. People like me don't get invited into rooms like that. So I studied the predator. His name was Marcus Kane, managing partner of Kane Stratagem, a private equity firm known for hostile tech acquisitions and aggressive restructurings. Financial media called him surgical, efficient. He was scheduled to give a guest lecture at MIT's Sloan School in early April. I sat in the back row. Marcus didn't waste time with inspiration. He dissected 3 student pitches in under 20 minutes. He didn't raise his voice. He asked one question at a time until each founder's numbers collapsed under their own inflation. What protects your downside? Silence. What happens when your burn rate doubles? Stammering. Why should I trust you with capital you've never managed before? No theatrics. Just controlled demolition. I recognized the rhythm. After the lecture, a crowd formed near the stage, students handing him resumes, trying to sell potential. Marcus barely glanced at them. I left through the side exit and walked fast down the corridor toward the executive elevators. High-profile speakers don't wait in public lobbies. They move through controlled access points. I stood beside the brushed steel doors and waited, heart rate steady. When he turned the corner, flanked by an assistant, he didn't acknowledge me. The assistant stepped forward to block the elevator. I stepped inside anyway. The doors slid shut. The assistant reached for the security button. Marcus stopped him with 2 fingers. You have until the lobby. Marcus said calmly, convince me this isn't a mistake. No introduction. No apology. I built a behavioral risk algorithm. I said, it predicts startup collapse before capital evaporates. No fluff. He didn't blink. Market-based, he asked. Behavior-weighted. Spending anomalies. Compensation distortion. Liquidity stress. Correlation. I ran 47 failed fintech datasets through it. 97% accuracy within a 6-month collapse window. Who funded you? No one. Why build it? Because I needed to understand catastrophic delusion. He studied me for half a second longer than comfortable. Email it. He said, I won't. I replied. The assistant shifted slightly. If I email it, it gets screened. I continued. If I walk out of this elevator without you seeing it, you lose a tool your competitors don't have yet. The elevator chimed. Lobby. Marcus didn't step out. Show me, he said. We moved to a small conference room near the lobby cafe. I opened my laptop and ran live simulations. I walked him through the weighting model, the anomaly triggers, the predictive decay curves. He interrupted often. Precise questions. No wasted language. Server security. Minimal. Scalability. Prototype level. Legal liability exposure. Manageable with restructuring. 43 minutes later, he closed the laptop. Your interface is terrible, he said flatly. Infrastructure is amateur, but the math is sharp. He leaned back in his chair. You've been starved, he added. Not sympathy. Assessment. Come to my office tomorrow at 6 a. Paid internship. Data analytics team. If you underperform, you're gone. If you survive, we'll discuss equity. No congratulations. No handshake. Just terms. The internship was not glamorous. 70-hour weeks. Live deal modeling. Rebuilding distressed acquisition projections at 3 in the morning. Marcus didn't mentor emotionally. He corrected errors. If I miscalculated exposure, he erased my projection and made me rebuild it from scratch. But he didn't sabotage me. He invested precision. Within 18 months, my behavioral layer was integrated into Kane Strategem's risk assessment stack. It flagged 3 high-profile fintech deals that were quietly deteriorating. One collapse would have cost the firm $22 million. Marcus called me into his office after the 3rd save. Glass walls. City skyline. He slid a term sheet across the desk. $2 million seed capital. He said, we spin your model into its own entity. You retain 60%. We take 40. Infrastructure and distribution come through us. There was a pause. You don't run a firm like this part-time, he added. If you sign, you leave MIT. No emotional manipulation. Just reality. I looked at the document. The MIT acceptance letter under my boot had been my exit from Dallas. It was my insurance policy. But insurance is a fallback. I wasn't building fallback. I signed. No speech. No hesitation. Dropping out wasn't rebellion. It was acceleration. The company scaled fast. Within a year, 3 major funds licensed the platform. Recurring revenue climbed. Behavioral risk modeling became a differentiator. By 23, the firm was acquired for $28 million by a multinational banking conglomerate. I retained a board seat. Marcus made me the youngest junior partner in Kane Stratagem's history. I didn't celebrate. I adjusted. From my office overlooking Manhattan, I ran a background audit on one more data set. Caleb Mercer Enterprise. The collapse window was narrowing. And this time, I wasn't just predicting it. I was waiting for it. The pitch deck arrived on a Monday morning. Bound in matte black leather, gold foil logo stamped across the front. Apex Quant AI, Autonomous Crypto Intelligence. Caleb had upgraded the name. Same incompetence. Better branding. It was routed to my office under a standard intake process. Flagged for expedited review. My assistant didn't know the last name meant anything to me. I opened it alone. 42 pages of inflated projections. Jargon-heavy slides. And market-size fantasies. Disruptive infrastructure. Institutional-grade algorithms. Liquidity optimization. I skipped to the financial appendix. That's where truth lives. They were requesting $750. 0 inches series of funding. The justification, scaling user acquisition and expanding engineering talent. Engineering talent. Caleb didn't know how to deploy a basic neural net without YouTube. I flipped further. There it was. Burn rate. $312,000 over the last 6 months. Revenue? Negligible. Active user accounts? Under 500. Churn rate. The capital hadn't gone into development. It had gone into image. Leased downtown office space in Dallas. Luxury vehicle categorized as executive marketing. 2 strategy retreats in Miami. Private crypto influencer partnerships with 0 ROI. I felt nothing. Then I reached the liability section. That's where the collision became inevitable. Caleb had taken out a high-yield commercial bridge loan to extend runway. Predatory terms. Short maturity window. Balloon payment due. Collateral listed. Primary residential property. Mercer Family Residence. North Dallas, Texas. My father's signature as primary guarantor. My mother co-signed. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the Manhattan skyline. They had done it again. They refinanced the house 5 years earlier to fund Caleb's second failed venture. Now they had pledged it outright to finance a crypto trading fantasy. The maturity clause was brutal. If Caleb failed to secure institutional funding by the final Friday of the month, the loan would trigger a hard default. Immediate foreclosure rights transferred to the lender. 5 days away. Marcus walked into my office without knocking. He held his own copy of the deck. Creative suicide note. He said calmly, "Did you run it through your model?" "I didn't need to," I replied. "It's already dead." He stepped closer. "Collateral. Family home." Marcus paused for half a second. "And the CEO is my brother." Silence. Marcus studied my face. Not searching for emotion, searching for instability. He found none. "We can decline quietly," he said. "Standard rejection. Let the lender collect." Quiet was clean. Quiet was efficient. Quiet also allowed narrative. My father would blame market volatility, regulatory pressure, East Coast elites. He would tell neighbors the firm lacked vision. He would never confront the lighter in his hand. "No," I said. "Approve them for in-person review." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You want them in the building. Public execution. Controlled." Marcus nodded once. 5 days. He said, "Prepare." The invitation went out that afternoon. Apex Quant AI has been selected for exclusive presentation to the firm's junior partner and strategic investment committee. No mention of my name. Caleb responded within 20 minutes. Grateful? Overconfident. They booked flights immediately. Over the next 5 days, I dismantled his company at forensic depth. I ran every transaction through my behavioral risk model. It highlighted compensation inflation, discretionary spending spikes, and liquidity distortions. The output was surgical. Charts showing divergence between marketing spend and product development. Graphs illustrating executive salary withdrawal, relative to revenue collapse. Heat maps marking behavioral panic points. I printed everything in structured black folders. This wasn't a rejection. This was documentation. Friday approached. 3 days before default. I slept normally, worked normally, attended board calls. Caleb posted on social media about major East Coast partnership discussions. My father commented with prayer hands and rocket emojis. They believed this meeting was salvation. On Thursday night, I reviewed the bridge loan agreement again. Hard default clause. Triggered at 5 Central Time. Friday. No funding secured. Immediate foreclosure initiation rights. I didn't intervene. I didn't delay. I let time move. Friday morning. Sure. They would walk into my boardroom, believing they were about to secure runway. Their house would legally begin transfer proceedings if no capital was committed. I wasn't emotional about it. It was structural inevitability. On the eve of the meeting, I sat alone in my office and looked at the numbers one last time. Caleb's company wasn't just failing. It was mathematically fraudulent. Revenue claims didn't match ledger deposits. Client acquisition costs were inflated to mask personal spending. Marketing contracts routed through shell vendors tied to friends. Sloppy, desperate, predictable. 5 years earlier, I had stood in a living room and watched my future burn while my father told me I was required to sacrifice for Caleb's success. Now Caleb's success required institutional capital. And institutional capital answered to me. Marcus stepped into my office late that afternoon. "You're sure?" he asked. Once we opened the door, there's no soft landing. I'm not offering one. He studied me for a moment longer, then finished it clean. I closed the black folder and placed it at the center of my desk. 5 days of preparation, 5 years of distance. Tomorrow, they would step into a glass room in Manhattan, believing they had finally found a savior. They hadn't realized they were walking into a balance sheet. And this time, I held the numbers. Friday. I was already seated at the head of the table when the message came through reception. Apex Quant AI has arrived. The boardroom was designed to intimidate without appearing theatrical. 42nd floor. Floor-to-ceiling glass. Manhattan spread beneath us like a grid of leverage and consequence. I positioned my chair so the morning light stayed behind me. Predators don't sit under interrogation lighting. The black forensic folder rested centered in front of me. My heart rate was steady. 5 years ago, in a Dallas living room, my father stood in front of a fireplace and decided my future was negotiable. Today, I controlled the capital he needed to survive. The doors opened. Caleb walked in first. Navy suit. Slightly oversized. New haircut. Forced confidence. Behind him, my father. Shoulders back. Chin raised. Same posture he used when lecturing me about family obligation. He didn't recognize me at first. Money changes silhouette. They took 3 steps into the room before the light shifted. Recognition landed. My father froze mid-stride. His hand was already extended for a handshake meant for someone powerful. It stayed suspended in the air. Caleb's mouth opened slightly. Confusion. Then calculation. "Ethan," he said. I didn't stand. I didn't smile. "I'm the junior partner reviewing your request," I said calmly. "Have a seat." Silence pressed against the glass walls. They sat. Caleb set his presentation clicker on the table with hands that were almost steady. My father tried to recover first. "Well," he said, clearing his throat. "Small world." He attempted a laugh. No one joined him. "Begin," I said. Caleb launched into the deck. Confident tone. Market opportunity slides. Institutional disruption language. Revenue scaling projections. I let him finish. Not once did I interrupt. When he reached the final slide, $750,000, requested I open the black folder. "Let's skip to your burn rate," I said. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. "You've spent $312,000 in 6 months. I continued. $82,000 allocated to executive mobility. That's the least Porsche. Correct? He shifted in his chair. It's branding. Answer the question. I turned a page. $47,000 on Miami retreats, categorized as infrastructure planning. Silence. $21,000 paid to a shell consulting vendor registered to your college roommate. My father leaned forward. "Now hold on. This isn't your house," I said evenly. "You don't interrupt here." His mouth closed. I slid a printed graph across the table. It displayed a red curve accelerating downward. "This is your liquidity projection adjusted for actual user retention." I continued. "Your platform collapses in 9 weeks. That's optimistic." Caleb's breathing changed. "We just need runway," he said. With the right partners, you don't have product market fit. I replied, you have image. And debt. I turned to the final page. The bridge loan you secured triggers hard default at 5 Central Time today. My father stiffened. That's not accurate. He said quickly, we've got meetings. You're in one. I said, silence. Collateral is your primary residence in Dallas. I added, you signed as guarantor. My father looked at Caleb. Caleb looked at the table. I leaned back in my chair. Funding request denied. No raised voice. No drama. Just fact. My father finally broke. You don't get to do this, he said, anger rising. We are your family. After everything we did for you, you burned my acceptance letters. I said calmly. He stopped. You told me I existed to finance his ambition. That was different. He snapped. It wasn't. Caleb spoke again. Desperation replacing polish. Ethan, come on. This is business. Don't make it personal. It's not personal. I said. It's structural. I closed the folder. Your model fails risk assessment. Your governance is compromised. Your financial disclosures border on misrepresentation. No institutional firm would fund this. I stood. Meeting over. But I didn't leave. Instead, I rested both hands on the table and looked directly at my father. Today, your lender initiates foreclosure proceedings if capital isn't secured. He swallowed. You could stop that, he said quietly. Then do it. There it was. Not apology. Not regret. Entitlement. You once told me family supports family. I said, I agree. Caleb's eyes flickered with hope. I straightened my jacket. This is support. And I walked out. Behind me, chairs scraped. Voices rose in confusion, but I didn't turn around. The elevator ride down was silent. Apex Quant AI had no funding. The hard default clause activated. I placed a call to Marcus's wealth division. Purchase the bridge debt. I said, full portfolio. Use the holding entity. Understood. Came the reply. The transfer cleared within 48 hours. By Sunday evening, I wasn't just the junior partner who denied their funding. I was their creditor. And this time, the house wasn't collateral. It was inventory. By Monday morning, the bridge lender was nervous. Toxic debt makes institutions anxious. A defaulted crypto startup with no revenue and a suburban house as collateral isn't an asset. It's a liability waiting to depreciate. That's when we stepped in. Marcus's wealth division handled it cleanly. A blind holding company registered in Delaware. Layered ownership. No visible connection to me offered to purchase the full debt position at a premium. The lender didn't hesitate. They transferred the promissory note. They transferred the deed of trust. They transferred foreclosure rights. Within 48 hours, the Mercer residence in North Dallas was no longer tied to a commercial bank. It was tied to an entity I controlled. I reviewed the documents personally. Outstanding principal, 34 million. Accrued interest and penalties. Compounding. Default status. Active. Legal authority. Immediate acceleration of balance and initiation of foreclosure proceedings. I wasn't emotional reading it. This was paperwork. 5 years ago. My father believed control meant volume. Whoever spoke loudest set the rules. Control is ownership. I placed a call to our legal counsel in Texas. I want the cleanest route. I said, no procedural errors. No delays. You want immediate foreclosure, the attorney asked. No. I replied. I want notice. Texas law required formal notification certified mail. 30-day cure period before property sale scheduling. Structure matters. I'll draft it, he said. By Wednesday afternoon, the formal notice of default and intent to accelerate was prepared on letterhead belonging to the holding company. No Mercer name visible. No Kane Stratagem branding. Just corporate authority. I flew to Dallas the next morning. First class. Window seat. No music. No reading. When we landed, I didn't call ahead. I rented a black Range Rover, less theatrical than a sports car. Still, unmistakable. Power doesn't need noise. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Paint peeling. Lawn uneven. Mailbox leaning slightly to one side. Financial decay always surfaces physically. My father opened the door before I knocked. He must have seen the vehicle pull into the driveway. He looked older, tired in a way that isn't just about sleep. What are you doing here? He asked. I handed him the envelope. Read it. He tore it open. Scanned the first page. His face drained. What is this company? He demanded. The one that owns your debt. His hand trembled slightly. This is harassment, he said. We're negotiating with the bank. You're not. I replied. The bank sold your paper. To who? To me? Silence. My mother stepped into the hallway behind him. Caleb appeared at the top of the stairs. You can't do that. Caleb said. Your family. I am. I said evenly. And I own the note. My father looked down at the page again. 30 days to cure default. Full accelerated balance due. Failure to remit results in foreclosure sale scheduling. You're not serious, he said. He stepped outside, lowering his voice. You're going to take our house. I'm going to enforce a contract you signed. Caleb moved closer. We just need more time, he said. The market's stabilizing. The numbers disagree. My father's tone shifted. Ethan, you've made your point. You embarrassed us in New York. But this is our home. You leveraged it. I corrected. He stared at me like he was seeing something unfamiliar. You'd evict your own parents. No anger. No raised voice. Just fact. They had 30 days. Not to negotiate. To move. I got back into the Range Rover and drove away without looking in the mirror. Institutional power isn't loud. It's documented. And this time, I held the documentation. 30 days pass faster when you don't have leverage. On day 31, I was back in Dallas. Not to argue. To conclude, I arrived early 8, before most of the neighborhood had left for work. The Range Rover rolled slowly down the street and stopped directly in front of the Mercer house. No rush. No music. Just engine idle. The lawn hadn't improved. 2 overfilled trash bags sat near the curb. Curtains inside the living room were half drawn. Like the house itself didn't want to be seen. My legal team was already parked 1 house down. Black sedan. County sheriff's vehicle behind it. Procedure. I stepped out. Cool morning air. No humidity this time. My father opened the front door before anyone knocked. He looked thinner, shirt untucked, eyes hollowed out. You don't have to do this, he said. We do, I replied. The sheriff approached and introduced himself calmly. He handed my father the formal confirmation of foreclosure enforcement. Sale date scheduled. Possession transferred to the holding company. Effective immediately. Caleb appeared behind him. Face pale. This is insane. Caleb muttered. You're blowing up everything. No, I said. You did. The neighbors were watching now. Front doors cracked open. Curtains shifted. Talbot across the street stood on her porch pretending to water plants. My mother stepped outside last. She had always cared about appearances, charity galas, landscaping symmetry, holiday parties. Now, she stood on a porch being legally removed from her own property. She looked at the sheriff. This is some kind of misunderstanding, she said, voice shaking. No, Mom. The sheriff replied gently. It isn't. My father turned toward me. You could stop this, he said again. Same sentence. Different volume. Then why won't you? I held his gaze. Because contracts matter. Silence. The sheriff instructed them to gather final belongings. Movers hired by my holding company would handle remaining items after inventory. They had been told the timeline. They just never believed it. Caleb walked down the driveway toward me. You're destroying Mom, he said quietly. She won't survive this socially. That's not my responsibility. He shook his head. You're cold. I'm consistent. The movers entered the house. Within hours, our furniture was wrapped and removed. Mattresses carried out. Framed photos boxed. The fireplace still intact and the living room visible through the open front door. I looked at it once. 5 years ago, that brick structure was where my future was supposed to end. Now, it was just masonry scheduled for demolition. By noon, the driveway was lined with their belongings. My parents had secured a short-term apartment rental across town. Smaller, cheaper zip code. No country club access. The sheriff handed my father a final possession transfer form to sign. His hands trembled again. This was never about the house, he said under his breath. I know, I replied. He signed. Ownership shifted formally at 12. My mother stood near the sidewalk as movers carried out the last armchair. What are you going to do with it, she asked. Redevelop. For profit. She looked confused. I've already filed permits. I continued. Demolition begins in 2 weeks. Her face tightened. You're selling it to developers. I paused. I'm converting the lot. To what? Transitional housing. For teenage boys aging out of foster care. Her expression froze. This is a residential community, she said sharply. Property values will adjust. Caleb stared at me. You're serious. I watched the realization land. The house wasn't just being taken. It was being replaced. and not with something that preserved status, with something that exposed it. 2 weeks later, I returned for the demolition. I stood across the street with a paper coffee cup while heavy machinery tore into the roof. The first impact crushed the upper corner of the living room. The second strike exposed the brick fireplace. The third brought it down completely. Dust rose into the Texas sky. No speeches, no applause, just physics. By the end of the day, the Mercer house was a pile of debris. Within months, construction began on a multi-unit housing facility. Clean lines, durable materials, structured supervision programs funded through my holding company's philanthropic division, not charity. Infrastructure. When the project completed, a small metal plaque was installed near the entrance. It didn't carry my name. It carried the mission statement. Stability is earned through structure. The neighborhood adjusted. Property values dipped slightly, then stabilized. My parents moved into a 2-bedroom apartment 20 miles away. Caleb took a mid-level operations job at a logistics warehouse. No startups, no crypto, just shifts. I never called. They never did either. The execution wasn't loud. It was documented. And when the dust settled, the fireplace was gone. People assume demolition is the ending. It isn't. It's a reset. When the Mercer house came down, I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel rage either. I felt correction. That property had been a structure built on distortion, ego inflated by debt, appearances financed by denial. Removing it wasn't revenge. It was structural repair. The housing facility that replaced it wasn't symbolic charity. It was engineered. 8 units, on-site supervision, financial literacy workshops, trade certification partnerships with local contractors, clear entry and exit timelines. No emotional slogans, just framework. I didn't build it to humiliate my parents. I built it because 5 years earlier, I had left a house at 2, with a duffel bag and no margin for error. Not every kid who leaves like that lands in an MIT dorm. Some disappear. If I was going to dismantle something, I was going to replace it with infrastructure that prevented collapse. I visited the site 6 months after completion. One of the residents, a 17-year-old who'd aged out of foster care, was studying HVAC certification manuals at a picnic table. He didn't know who I was. That was intentional. The point wasn't recognition. It was replication. Stability, when designed correctly, multiplies. I stood there for 10 minutes, hands in pockets, watching him take notes. No speeches, no introduction. Then I left. My parents' house was gone, but the space wasn't empty. It had been recalibrated. That's the part people misunderstand about power. Power isn't about destruction. It's about control over what replaces what you remove. 5 years ago, my father used fire to eliminate what threatened his illusion. I used demolition to eliminate what threatened structural integrity. Different motives, different outcomes. And this time, the foundation was solid. People like to reduce stories like this to revenge. It's simpler that way. Successful son destroys family. That headline fits better than the truth. The truth is structural. In dysfunctional families, roles are assigned early. One child becomes the projection, the golden one, the future, the proof that the parents did something extraordinary. The other becomes insurance, backup income, emotional shock absorber, the one expected to adapt. If you're the scapegoat, understand this. They don't need you weak. They need you smaller than the illusion. My father didn't burn my acceptance letters because he hated education. He burned them because my independence threatened his control. If I left, Caleb's incompetence would be exposed without comparison. If I succeeded, the narrative collapsed. So he removed the variable. Fire is a simple tool when you're afraid. What he miscalculated was scale. When you suppress someone long enough, you either break them or you sharpen them. Pain, handled correctly, it becomes data. Data becomes leverage. Leverage becomes distance. And distance becomes power. Here's what I've learned. You don't argue your way out of a dysfunctional system. You don't beg for validation. You don't wait for fairness. You build optionality. You build skill. You build liquidity. You build silence. And when the time comes, you make decisions without asking permission. Some of you watching this are still inside houses where your ambition is inconvenient, where your competence makes someone else uncomfortable. Listen carefully. You are not obligated to stay small so someone else can feel large. You are not required to subsidize delusion with your future. And you are not cruel for enforcing boundaries that protect your trajectory. Walking away isn't betrayal. It's calibration. I didn't destroy my parents. I refused to keep absorbing the consequences of their choices. There's a difference. If you're in a position right now where your potential is being treated like a threat, start preparing quietly. Hide your plans. Secure your leverage. Exit clean. You don't need to announce it. And when you build something strong enough that they can't reach you anymore, don't waste energy proving a point. Just enforce contracts. That's enough. This story is created by the Boundaries and Bloodlines team for entertainment and educational purposes only. It is not financial, legal, or psychological advice. Do not attempt to replicate actions described without proper professional consultation. All events and characters are dramatized. Viewer discretion is advised.